I never wanted to drive back to Black Pine County. Not after that night 15 years ago, the night I left and swore I'd never look back. Not after those midnight phone calls that used to jolt me awake, the line filled with nothing but slow, hollow breathing. Not after the way the woods sometimes whispered in my dreams. But when the hospital called. When they told me my mother died alone in that old house crouched at the edge of the forest, something inside me cracked like thin ice. I packed a single duffel, pulled on my old jacket that still smelled faintly of smoke and pine, and drove. The highway stretched empty under a dying sun, the kind of light that makes the world feel brittle. The radio hissed static, some half-lost country song, until I couldn't stand the sound and killed it. For hours there was nothing but blacktop and trees, and the deeper I went, the taller they seemed to grow. At dusk, the welcome sign appeared out of nowhere. Welcome to Black Pine. The letters were faded, streaked dark with something that didn't look like rust. Someone had carved a word beneath it in uneven slashes. Remember. By the time I reached the old place, the sky had turned a bruise-colored violet, thick with storm clouds that seemed too low, like they were listening. The house hunched at the tree line, gray siding warped, chimney crooked like a broken finger. I cut the engine and sat there, gripping the wheel until my knuckles ached. Silence. No, not silence. The wind sighed through the trees, low and steady, like 100 voices murmuring prayers too soft to catch. I stepped out. Gravel crunched under my boots. The air carried the damp sweetness of pine needles, and beneath it, unmistakable lavender. My mother always burned lavender candles when she was nervous. The scent hit me like a memory, sharp and cold, and my chest tightened until I could barely breathe. The porch sagged under my weight. A shutter banged lazily against the siding. When my fingers touched the doorknob, it was cold. Too cold, as if something on the other side had been holding it from within. The door groaned open with a weight that felt wrong, like it hadn't moved in years. Inside, the air hit me like a wall, stale, heavy, thick with the smell of old wood and something faintly metallic. My flashlight beam cut a narrow path through the dark, catching dust motes that floated like pale ash. The living room lay frozen in time. The couch where Mom used to fall asleep with a book still sagged in the middle, draped with a yellowed afghan. Her rocking chair stood by the window, angled just so, a thin shawl hanging over its arm. Above the doorframe, the wooden cross still clung crooked to the nail. I set my bag down. The sound thudded too loud in the stillness, echoing back in a way that made the house feel alive, like lungs expanding. Listening, I tried to breathe. Tried to tell myself this was just a house, just memories and creaking wood. But then I heard it. A whisper, soft, rasping, right behind me. "Elena, you came back." The flashlight trembled in my hand as I spun around, beam slicing through empty space. Shadows stretched long and thin across the walls like black fingers reaching. Nothing moved. Nothing breathed. I backed toward the kitchen table, pulse thudding in my ears, when I saw it. A folded piece of paper resting dead center on the wood. My name on the front, scrawled in my mother's shaky script. My hands were numb as I opened it. The note smelled faintly of lavender. "Don't listen to the voices at 3 a.m. I stared, heart hammering. Then my eyes flicked to the wall clock above the stove. The second hand ticked steady. 2:47 a.m. A floorboard creaked somewhere in the hallway. My skin prickled. I forced the words out, my voice small and strange in the dark. "Who's there?" Silence answered. Then, faintly, the whisper of lavender on the air deepened. Stronger now, too strong. I stepped into the hallway. The shadows there were thicker, pooling in the corners as if the dark itself had weight. The air tasted metallic, and the smell, sweet lavender twisted with something sharper. Iron. Blood. My mother's bedroom door hung half open. I reached out, my fingers trembling against the cold brass knob, and pushed. The hinge screamed like a wounded animal. Moonlight slanted across the bed, catching on rumpled sheets. and the dark stains spreading like ink across the pillow, as though a head had rested there and bled slowly into the fabric. I staggered back, hand clamped over my mouth, and then so close I felt the warmth of it against my ear. The whisper came again, "Stay with me." The flashlight slipped from my grip. It hit the floor and rolled, the beam spinning wild, shadows writhing on the walls like living things. For an instant, just an instant, I thought I saw it. A figure in the corner, tall, black, antlers curving toward the ceiling. But when the light stilled, there was nothing, only the dark. I snatched up the flashlight, breath coming in short, ragged bursts. I had to leave. I had to get out. I turned toward the front door and froze. The door was gone, no handle, no frame, just a blank stretch of wallpaper, yellowed and curling as if a door had never existed. My knees weakened, panic surged up my throat, and then 3 knocks, slow, heavy. Knock, knock, knock. The sound came from behind me, from that dark hallway I just left, and my mother's voice, soft, broken, wrong, floated out. "Elena, open the door. I'm cold." I stumbled backward, away from that voice, heart beating so hard I could feel it in my teeth. The hallway yawned before me, longer than I remembered, shadows stretching like black rivers into rooms I didn't want to see. I forced my legs to move. Each step made the old boards groan as though the house itself objected. The flashlight beam darted left and right, chasing shapes that might have been nothing, or might have been watching me. Then I saw them. Muddy footprints, bare feet. Small, too small for any adult. They led from the corner of the living room toward that half-open bedroom door. The stains were wet, glistening in the flashlight's beam, smearing across the boards as though someone had just passed through. I froze. My breath hitched in my chest. "It's just old stains," I told myself. "Just dust and old water damage." But deep down I knew better. The air itself had shifted, heavy with the scent of pine and lavender, and something sharp beneath it. Something that raised the hair on the back of my neck. I swallowed hard and stepped closer, crouching to touch one of the prints. It was still wet, cold as ice. My hand shot back like I'd been burned. A whisper, soft and urgent, brushed my ear. "Follow the footprints." I spun around. No one there. Only the long hallway and the rhythmic creak of the house breathing in the night. The footprints turned left, toward the kitchen, and without thinking I followed. My boots squelched in the wet marks. The lavender scent thickened until it was almost sweet enough to choke on. Every window I passed was nailed shut, boards warped over the glass, the nails rusty and bent. I tried one, shoved against it until my shoulder ached. It didn't budge. In the kitchen, the footprints continued straight to the back door. The old screen door stood ajar, squeaking softly in the night wind. Beyond it, the yard stretched out like a pale scar, and the trees loomed, their black shapes leaning toward one another like conspirators. I stepped out. The night air hit me like a wet cloth, cold, damp, alive. The moon was a thin blade in a starless sky. The forest ahead breathed, branches swaying though the wind was still. The footprints led straight into the tree line, and then I heard it. Soft, high-pitched giggles, carrying on the night air. Children's giggles, weaving in and out of the whisper of the trees. I stopped dead. Every part of me screamed, "Don't go in." Then a new voice, sharp and desperate, cut through the night. "Help me." My blood ran cold. It wasn't my mother's voice. It was higher, younger. A name broke out of me before I could stop it. Grace? Grace. The neighbor's kid. 12 now, maybe. Sweet little girl who used to draw monsters on the porch steps. The giggles stopped. The woods went silent. Then, again, faint and broken. "Help me." I stepped off the porch. The grass soaked my boots. The night pressed closer. Branches clawed at the sky as I crossed the yard, flashlight shaking in my hand. The footprints wove between the trees, deep into the dark. Fog curled around my ankles like fingers. I should have turned back. Every instinct screamed at me. But I kept going. I had to. A flash of white caught my beam, a ribbon tied to a low branch. Pale fabric fluttered, ink letters bleeding at the edges. Emily D., 1987. My throat closed. I swept the flashlight around. More ribbons, dozens, hundreds, names scrawled in black. Some faded, some fresh. They hung like ghosts in the trees, whispering in the night breeze. My beam caught one more. Grace M., 2024. No, my voice cracked. No, she's alive. She just called me. A sound drifted through the fog. Slow, heavy footsteps, leaves crunching. I turned the flashlight toward it. Between the trees, something moved. Tall, broad shoulders, antlers curling black and sharp against the night sky. Its eyes caught the beam, two burning coals in a face too dark to see. And when it spoke, my mother's voice poured out of its mouth. Elena, come here, baby. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The thing stepped closer, hooves sinking into the earth, the ground trembling with each step. The smell hit me, sweet rot and old blood. The antlered head tilted far to the side, too far, and the voice shifted, deep, rasping, layered with others. You owe me. I turned and ran. Branches whipped my face, roots snagged at my boots, but I didn't look back. The thing's steps shook the ground behind me, slow, deliberate, almost lazy, as if it knew I couldn't get far. Ribbons slapped against my cheeks, fluttering from low branches, names flashing past like gravestones. Emily, Jonah, Lydia. Each one a child the town had whispered about, gone without a trace. The giggles rose again, thin, breathless, close. I burst through the tree line and saw the house ahead, dark and crouching. I slammed through the back door, bolting it, gasping for air. The lavender scent was a storm now, thick enough to choke. Then, 3 heavy knocks from the front wall where no door had been moments ago. Knock, knock, knock. My mother's voice drifted in, soft and broken. Elena, please, let me in. I pressed my back to the wall, hands over my ears. Don't listen. Don't listen. And then, a child's laugh, faint and shivering from deeper in the house. I spun, flashlight trembling, and there she was. A little girl in a tattered nightgown, barefoot, standing by the rocking chair. Her face was pale as bone, her eyes 2 black voids. She smiled, a slow, tearing grin, and vanished. The whispering rose, dozens of voices clawing through my mind. I dropped to my knees, whispering, stop. Please stop. Then, silence. When I lifted my head, the muddy footprints were back, leading from the chair, through the kitchen, and out into the night again. I don't remember deciding. My legs moved on their own. The forest swallowed me whole, the flashlight beams swinging wild. Fog curled thick around my knees. The footprints led deeper, deeper until I saw her, huddled at the base of a tree, white nightgown smeared with dirt. Grace. I stumbled toward her. I'm here. She raised her head, too slowly. Her eyes opened, black, bottomless, and a voice that was not hers spilled out. You should have stayed away. Her skin cracked like old paper, splitting to reveal shadows writhing beneath. She opened her mouth wide, too wide, and screamed. The woods exploded with movement. Antlered shapes slid from the fog, tall and thin, eyes burning like coals. Behind them, more children stepped out, barefoot, bloodied, their mouths stretching open in silent song. I scrambled back, heart slamming against my ribs, and tripped over a root. The flashlight skittered away. A shotgun blast split the night. Get away from her. Hank crashed through the underbrush, eyes wild, firing again. Shadows shredded into mist and reformed farther back. He grabbed my arm, hauling me up. Move. We ran. This time, I didn't stop until the trees broke open into a clearing, and there it was, a sagging cabin, roof bowed under vines, lantern hanging crooked by the door. Hank shoved the door open with his shoulder, clearing corners with the shotgun. Inside, the air was thick with dust and something coppery. Symbols had been carved into the walls, circles, antlers, faces with hollow eyes, streaked dark like they'd bled. Melted candles covered every surface, wax hardened in rivers down the wood. Hank crouched by the hearth, sifting through ash until he pulled out a small, cracked leather book. He flipped it open, eyes scanning the frantic script. What is this place? My voice was barely a whisper. Preacher's cabin. Hank said without looking up. Old stories say he knew how to fight it before he vanished. He turned the book toward me. Words scrawled jagged and desperate. To bind the hollow one, you must give what was taken. Blood for blood, breath for breath. I felt the bottom drop out of my stomach. What does that mean? Hank's jaw worked. Your mom made a deal, didn't she? Images flashed, me 6 years old, fevered and fading. Mom's hand gripping mine, whispering promises through tears. I thought medicine saved me. Now I knew better. Tears blurred my vision. She traded my life. Hank's voice was rough. And now it's here to collect. No. My fists clenched. No, there has to be another way. He flipped another page. His face went pale as ash. If the debtor will not come, another may stand in her place. Blood for blood, but the forest will remember the name. My throat closed. Someone else? Hank looked at me, eyes shadowed with something like guilt. Don't even think it. Before I could answer, the air in the cabin shifted. The lantern by the door flickered blue. Then, a low, scraping sound like claws across wood. The door burst inward, hinges shrieking. The hollow one stepped through, antlers brushing the frame, eyes blazing. Behind it, black-eyed children poured in, their song rising sweet and terrible. Hank fired. Shadows exploded, the hollow one recoiling but not falling. It stepped closer, smiling that too-wide smile. You can run, it crooned, but the debt follows. Its clawed hand shot out, closing around my arm. I screamed as pain seared through my shoulder. Blood welled, hot and slick. Something in me snapped. My flashlight beam caught the cracked window. I grabbed a jagged shard of glass, gripping it until my palm bled, and thrust it into my arm. Deep, deliberate. Pain flared white-hot as I forced the words out, voice breaking. Elena Carter returns what was taken. Blood spilled onto the cabin floor. The hollow one screamed, a sound that rattled the walls, shadows ripping away from the children as they collapsed. Its body splintered, cracking like dead wood, black sap spilling from its mouth. The forest remembers. It hissed, and then it exploded into ash and smoke. The room fell silent except for my ragged breathing. Hank dropped to his knees beside me, tearing his jacket to wrap my bleeding arm. Grace crawled toward me, sobbing, her eyes now clear, human. Outside, the wind shifted. The lavender scent faded. For a moment, I believed it was over. But somewhere deep in the woods, a low lullaby began to hum again. Patient. Waiting. The ride back was a blur of headlights and shadows. Hank's old truck roared down the dirt road, tires spitting gravel, while Grace curled against me in the passenger seat, trembling like a bird in my arms. Her tiny fingers clutched my sleeve as though letting go would drag her back into that black forest. My arm throbbed under Hank's jacket, blood still seeping through the makeshift bandage. Every pulse was a reminder of what I'd done, and of what the hollow one had said as it died. The forest remembers. I stared out the window at the tree line rolling past. In the glass I saw my own face, pale and streaked with tears, and for a heartbeat I saw hers instead, my mother's face, soft and smiling, until her eyes bled black. I closed my eyes. When we hit the edge of town, the streets were empty. The street lamps flickered weakly in the pre-dawn haze. Hank parked in front of the sheriff's office, killed the engine, and for a long moment, none of us moved. Grace's breathing was the only sound, shallow, quick, like she was still running. Finally, Hank exhaled, long and tired. We need to get you stitched up. I'm fine, I whispered, though I wasn't sure if it was true. My eyes stayed on Grace. Just make sure she's safe. Hank studied me for a moment. There was something brittle in his gaze now, like he wanted to say more but didn't trust his own voice. Elena, you know it's not gone, right? I swallowed. I gave it blood, it's over. Hank shook his head, jaw tightening. It don't work like that. Deals like that, they leave a scar on more than just your skin. I wanted to argue, but the words died in my throat. Because somewhere, under the smell of antiseptic and old coffee in that office, something else curled through the air. Faint, sweet, unmistakable. Lavender. I froze. Hank's eyes darted to mine. He smelled it too. Then came the voice, soft, familiar. From outside the window. "Elena," I turned slowly. She was standing in the middle of the street, hair long and tangled, white nightgown fluttering in the early breeze. My mother, or what was left of her. "Mom," my breath caught. Her smile was almost real. Almost. "Thank you, you saved them." A sob tore through me. "It's over. Please, tell me it's over." Her head tilted too far, her neck bent at an impossible angle, and her eyes, oh God, her eyes leaked black, thick and endless. "You can't break a chain," she whispered. "You can only pass it on." The ground trembled. The trees at the edge of town seemed to lean closer, and from between them, antlers rose like a forest of spears. Hank was on his feet now, shotgun in hand. Back inside Elena, now. But I didn't move. The thing wearing my mother's face stepped closer, bare feet leaving dark prints on the asphalt. Her voice was tender, cooing the way she used to when I was a child. "You lived when you shouldn't have. A debt remains." The words cut deep. I felt them in my bones. My blood had bought us time, but not freedom. Grace whimpered softly, curling tighter against me. My chest clenched so hard I could barely breathe. If I stayed, if I tried to hide, it would come again. It would take her, or Hank, or someone else. It would never stop. My mother's shadow reached for me, hand pale and shaking. "Come home, Elena." I stood. Hank caught my arm. Don't you do this." His voice cracked. "We'll fight. We'll find another way." I looked at Grace. Her eyes were wide, shimmering with fear and something else, trust. And I knew there was no other way. I pried Hank's hand from my arm. "It's me it wants. Let her live." "Elena?" His voice broke on my name. But I stepped out into the street. The air thickened, heavy as tar, pressing against my skin. My legs moved steady, calm, as if I'd been walking this road all my life. The hollow one rose from the trees, antlers scraping the sky, its eyes burning like coals. The thing wearing my mother's face extended a hand, palm open, waiting. I took one last look at Hank, standing frozen by the truck, and at Grace, who had buried her face in her hands. I smiled at them, small, broken, and stepped forward. Cold flooded my chest as the hand closed around mine. The world tilted. The lavender scent swelled until it drowned everything else. And the last thing I heard was my mother's voice, soft and proud, whispering, "You're home now?" No one ever saw Elena again. But some nights, when the moon is a thin blade and the lavender scent drifts through black pine, they say you can hear her voice in the tree line, whispering softly, warning anyone awake enough to listen. Don't listen to the voices at 3 a.m. Black pine never really woke up after that night. The next morning, the sky broke into a weak, gray light that felt more like ash than dawn. Hank stood on the sheriff's porch for hours, staring at the tree line like a man who had seen too much and was still listening for more. Grace stayed at the clinic, refusing to let go of the blanket they gave her, flinching at every sound outside the window. She wouldn't speak. Not at first. Not until days later, when her voice came back in broken whispers. She took my hand before she let go. She smiled. No one knew what she meant. Hank did. He didn't explain. The townsfolk whispered about Elena Carter in low voices at the diner, at the gas station, anywhere someone might be listening. Some called her a fool for going back. Others called her a saint. But the ones who knew, the ones who'd lost children or heard knocks at night they'd never speak of, those people left offerings at the edge of the woods. Little things. Ribbons, candles, a photograph in a rusted frame. Not to summon anything, but to keep it quiet. To keep it fed. Hank went back to work, but something in him was gone. He carried the preacher's book everywhere now, pages dog-eared and stained with coffee and blood. Some nights, the deputies would hear him out by the edge of the trees, muttering words no one recognized, shotgun hanging loose in his hands. When asked, he only said, "A chain don't break itself." The hollow one? No one saw it again, not fully. But there were signs. A shape in the fog on Route 19. A child's laugh drifting across a field at midnight. A thin ribbon nailed to the church door one Sunday morning with a name no one in town recognized, and that smell. Lavender, sweet and cloying, curling through an open window at exactly 3 a.m. One night, Grace woke screaming. They found her sitting up in bed, eyes wide, clutching at her chest. "She was there," she whispered. "Elena. She told me to run." The nurses calmed her, but Grace kept repeating it softer each time until her eyes closed and she slept like the dead. Hank sat in the clinic hallway till dawn, shotgun across his lap, staring at the double doors. A week later, the preacher's cabin burned down. No one admitted to lighting it, but some said they saw Hank out there with a can of gasoline, watching the flames with a face carved from stone. When the smoke cleared, only the chimney remained, and a single ribbon fluttering from it, black letters clear and fresh. Elena Carter, 2024. Black Pine went on. People locked their doors earlier. Mothers called their kids in before dark. And if someone heard a knock in the dead of night, 3 slow, heavy knocks, they buried their faces in pillows and prayed until sunrise. Because everyone knew the old warning now, whispered from porch to porch, like gospel: don't listen to the voices at 3 a.m., don't follow the footprints, and never ever answer when the dead call your name. Years passed. Black Pine shrank like an old scar, houses emptying, businesses closing, the roads cracking under weeds. Outsiders stopped coming, maps forgot the town was even there. But those who stayed kept their routines. Candles lit in windows at dusk, doors locked before midnight. And always, always, the whispered warnings passed down like lullabies no one dared to sing too loud. Grace grew up quiet. She carried that night in her eyes, a shadow you couldn't name but always felt when she looked at you too long. People said she was lucky, blessed even, but she never celebrated birthdays. She kept a small bundle of dried lavender tied with twine in her backpack, and at exactly 3 a.m. every night, she woke, without fail, staring out the window toward the tree line. Hank aged fast. His hair went gray within a year. He still walked the perimeter some nights, lantern in one hand, shotgun in the other, his breath visible in the cold even in summer. Some nights he would pause by the old sign at the county line, now rusted and tilting, and run his thumb over the carved word, "Remember." When kids asked him about the hollow one, he never answered. He just said, "If you hear your mama calling from the woods, don't you dare go running. She ain't the one calling." Time softened the details, but not the fear. Hunters swore they saw something between the pines, a tall shadow with crooked antlers. A delivery driver refused to take the night route after something followed him in the mirror, all the way to the gas station. And sometimes, in the deep hours before dawn, folks woke to the sound of soft laughter outside their windows, like children playing in the yard. They never looked. One bitter winter, long after Elena was gone, a snowstorm hit and trapped the town for days. When the winds finally calmed, people found a trail of muddy footprints leading from the edge of the forest to the old sheriff's office. Hank followed them alone, lantern swinging, until they vanished in the snow. But when he came back, his hands were shaking, and he wouldn't tell anyone what he'd seen. Only this: she's still watching over us, or maybe she's just watching. On certain nights, when the moon is nothing but a thin silver blade, a faint scent drifts through Black Pine. Lavender. Sweet, patient, inevitable. And if you stand very still on those nights, if you stand where the forest meets the road and you listen, you might hear it. A woman's voice, soft as the wind in the pines, carrying on the dark. Don't listen to the voices at 3 a.m., don't follow the footprints, don't open the door. Most folks turn back before the whispers fade, but some don't. Some step off the road and into the trees, and Black Pine remembers, always.